am feeling very much like we're in an African village today with all this representation of Africa that we have today. You have me from born and raised in Kenya, brother Adesoji, Nigerian, living in a foreign criminal enterprise, brother Colin, representing the Virgin Islands, brother Ifoh, Nigeria, brother Limadi, Uganda, sister Florence, Zambia. I am feeling very African today. Welcome everyone, Karibuni, Asante for being with us today. The name is Nduku, again, a Black woman, a Black African woman who has chosen to embrace, defend, advocate, and preserve Black consciousness in every way that I can. Brothers and sisters, please introduce yourselves.
Brother Milton next.
Sure. Milton Alimadi. Welcome, sisters and brothers, to our weekly global university. In Kiswahili, it's called Chuo Kikuu, which means university. And today I'm very happy to be grounding with young comrades, Prince Ifoh in Nigeria and Florence Kasumbalesa. I think I got it right. From all the way in Lusaka, Zambia. Yes. So intergenerational conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Karibuni.
Yes, again, welcome everyone to Kumbukeni. My name is Adesoji Ginla, reaching from the belly of the beast, the mother of all.
Criminal in chief.
You know the score. The one on which the sun never sets. Yes, welcome to another conversation. This time we're speaking to Africans across the diaspora. We'll be speaking to Prince Ifoh and Florence from Lusaka. Wow, a bit far out of the reaches, but Africa is such a vast continent that it becomes incumbent that we must at some point have this conversation. And like Julius Nyerere will often say, your conversation starts at home. You have to speak to each other before you go outside, lest you be humbled by those who do not like you. So let's begin.
Brother Colin.
Yes, my name is Colin Benjamin. I am managing editor of Black Star News, also the Black Star News show on WBAI 99.5. I work with the individual there, Mr. Milton. I'd like to say seriously that thank you guys for inviting me to this program. You know that on a couple of occasions I've said that the youth empowerment engagement thing is a big deal. If we fail to energize and empower the youth, African liberation is dead. And so thank you guys for having me. And I would like to also say welcome to Sister Florence and Brother Ifoh.
Yes. Sister Florence. Thank you, Colin.
All right, thank you so much. My name is Florence Kasumbalesa, and I'm a Zambian medical student, an ambassador for Young African Leaders Forum, Young African Climate Alliance, and the founder of the Zambia Health and Nutrition Project. I work as a Pan-Africanist as well as a climate activist. I am an alumni for the study of the U.S. Institute for Young Women Leaders and Public Policy. Now, thank you so much.
Thank you. Brother Ifoh.
All right, thank you so much. I am Prince Ifoh, the founder of the Young African Leaders Forum and the editor-in-chief of Africa's first development journal by young people, YALF. I'm delighted to be here and looking forward to an exciting conversation. Thank you.
This is great for all in the diaspora, in the spaces I've been, who ask what is going on in Africa. You get to hear what is actually going on today from our guests. But before we go to the conversation, I'm going to play a quick video just to introduce what YALF does, and then we'll take it from there with our conversation. Bear with me quickly.
On the 25th of July 2011, an undergraduate thesis titled Philosophy, Democracy and African Development, a Critical Review, was defended at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, Accra. The young researcher was strongly informed by Dr. Walter Rodney how Europe and the developed Africa lessons from Rodney's senior work had triggered interestedness on African sustainable development. In 2014, that young researcher connected with like-minded youth across 8 nations in Africa, and the consequence, result of that strategic hobnob was the formation of Young African Leaders Forum, YALF, one of the Africa's most radical youth movement. This brief video introduces the Young African Leaders Forum. The Young African Leaders Forum, YAF, is a pan-African organization birthed to empower young people and prepare the next generation of leaders in Africa. With an ultimate objective to perpetuate sustainable development in African communities, YAF equips youth and early-aged women at grassroots level with the skills, knowledge, and opportunities needed to help them represent their own needs and advocate for the needs of others. The organization has since grown to house thousands of youth members across 28 African nations, with national coordinators leading national units. It has directly empowered over 12,000 young people and early-aged women in different African communities through trainings, workshops, development researches, seminars, summits, business symposiums, finance projects, and recently some Rodney-like groundings. In November 2018, YAF was honorably hosted Dr. Patricia Rodney, wife of Dr. Walter Rodney, during its West African Youth Summit, WISE, in Lagos, Nigeria. Following shared values and a common goal in sight, YAF works closely with Dr. Patricia Rodney and the entire Walter Rodney Foundation at RATA. The Young African Leaders Forum also acts as a watchdog and intervenes in African social policies through its widely used journal, Young African Leaders Journal of Development, YADOF. The biennial publication seeks to checkmate and influence policy decisions in the continent. It garners the insights of youth and represents them to policymakers and stakeholders for implementation within the continent. In 2016 and 2018 respectively, the first and second editions of YADOF were launched at the African Union headquarters at Addis Ababa, whilst the third edition is due to be launched in November 2020. The digital version of journal can be accessed on digitalcommons.kennesaw.h.yadof. Yes, every African has a responsibility to first understand the system and then work towards its overcome. YAF is keeping this real to create the Africa we want. You too can be part of this trajectory.
Hi, my name is Prince Ifoh, founder of the Young African Leaders Forum. Our goal is to get into the grassroots levels in all African communities to empower young people and build a new generation of leaders for Africa.
Get in touch with us now at YAF Africa at Prince Ifoh.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was great, and I see we lost Prince Ifoh during the presentation, but he's coming back in, so we'll have him join us. But we can see a similar a theme there, right? The Walter Rodney Foundation. So let's talk about Baba Walter Rodney and how he's influenced both of you, Florence. And given the history of Pan-Africanism on highlighting men's work, I'm going to honor the women today and start with you, Sister Florence, if you can please just talk a little bit about the Walter Rodney Foundation and how it's influenced you and how you're carrying on with Baba Walter Rodney's message in your work, please.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So, so when we talk about Walter Rodney, this is a Pan-Africanist that worked into seeing positive change into Africa. And as a young person in Africa, I believe it is our responsibilities that he started the works of Pan Africanism, and to 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 praise his legacy. We ought to take up from where he ended to achieve the Agenda 2063, which is the Africa we want. So we ought to take up spaces in situations where we see changes are not being made. So it's up to us to take up space into seeing the change that we want to see.
Brother Ifoh, how were you influenced by Baba Walter, Rodney, and how are you living in the spirit of Baba Walter, Rodney?
Thank you so much, Nduku, for that question. So I'd like to start from the very basis of what inspired me into doing what I'm currently doing. So if I had not had the opportunity to read through how Europe underdeveloped Africa when I was an undergraduate student, I do not think I would have been interested in African development and in driving that Pan African legacy that I am doing today. And so this is where, if you ask me, this is where the change happened during my undergraduate thesis and during my undergraduate research, and that's how I began to see things in the light of the lenses that Wateroni had provided. And so we then have the responsibility as today's dispensation of young people to move his legacy to the next level. And so that's basically what we are trying to do with the Young African Leaders Forum. I usually imagine or try to wonder that what would have happened if Rodney had not penned that very important book that he penned many years ago. I mean, we as Africans have really understood the light and the essence of how Africa has been exploited over the years? Would we understand the dynamics of the neo-colonialisms that are happening everywhere? So that's how vital and how powerful the works of Waterodi is. And so even as an organization, Young African Leaders Forum, since Rodney was the inspiration that brought about our movement and our existence in the first place, we honor the works of Walter Rodney and we continue to spread his legacy, hold conferences in honor of his works, continue to ensure that young people continue to realize the need to stay together, to stay united, and to keep promoting things in the spirit and in the movement of Pan-Africanism. And these are the things that we are trying to, work with and continue to see how we can move the legacies of Walter Rodney to the next level. And thankfully, we have been connected to the Walter Rodney Foundation, Dr. Pat, and the family, and also the entire foundation. And we've become family with them, and we continue to work with the Walter Rodney Foundation to spread the works of Walter Rodney and to empower young people, to give them that kind of mindset that Rodney needed young people to have when he was alive. And so that's basically what we are doing. I mean, Walter Rodney is an inspiration. He's an eternal inspiration for me. Thank you.
That and for those members of the community joining us, if you're you want to find out how you can help with the Walter Rodney Foundation, the link is running through on the bottom of the video. Just go ahead and visit and see what they're doing. Brothers, Alimadi, Adesoji, Colin.
Okay. Hi, Florence. Hi, Prince Ifoh. So, Walter Rodney, even though he was very academic, one of the most renowned academics, and in addition to the books that you mentioned, how Europe underdeveloped Africa, he also liked to connect with the ordinary people. And that's what often got him in trouble. In fact, he was kicked out of Jamaica because he would leave the more elite type university environment and he would go to the so-called slums, also called ghettos in some countries. And he would teach people, ordinary people, low-income people, about how they could empower themselves, about, first of all, embracing their culture and their history, and knowing that they were not inferior to anybody, and organizing them to work together. So I don't know if you're already doing it, but I think Walter Rodney would be very happy if he sees that the young people in Africa of the 21st century are not just having a conversation amongst themselves online or even when they meet at impressive fora such as the African Union, but he would be happy if he knows that you're also going to the ordinary people in the so-called slums, in the so-called ghettos, and even standing or sitting on an empty crate, a soda crate or a beer crate, and just starting conversation with them and saying, did you know that your condition is like this because our countries continue to be exploited? And this was well explained by a professor named Walter Rodney. And this is a copy of the book. And while it may not be easy to get it to all of you, I can read parts of this book to you and explain it, and we can have a conversation about it. And if you do this, there might be one or two people in the beginning. But if you do it maybe every week or every other week, the word will start spreading. So now that you are now transmitting the education that Rodney sent through his book that reached you at some stage in your life, and now you're transferring it to other people that may not have access to the book or the internet, but would benefit tremendously from this type of education. So if you're not already doing that, I would encourage you very strongly to do that. Walter Rodney was involved in activism. He was a brilliant professor, academic, but he rolled up his sleeves too. In Guyana, he became involved with the Working People's Alliance Party.
Yeah, WPA.
That was trying to bring everybody together because Guyana is very polarized between African Guyanese and Indian or Indo-Guyanese. And politicians take advantage of that. In some other African countries, it's called, and Rodney also discusses this, so-called tribalism or ethnic differences. And Rodney did not like that. And he speaks about this in a lecture called Crisis in the Periphery, Africa and the Caribbean. So these are the things he fought. He fought ignorance. He fought the plan by the elite to try to keep education away from ordinary people. And he also fought ethnic differences. And I think you, the young people, would do a great legacy to Africa and also move us closer toward a united African Federation of African nations if you start teaching our people all these types of knowledge so that the next generation would not be burdened by any inferiority complex or any differences and will come together. And that's how we can build a future united, federated Africa, which of course is the vision that Rodney had, Kwame Nkrumah had, Sankara had. So I would like you to comment on what I just said, and you can take it in any direction. And then after that, I yield to my brothers Adesoji and to Brother Colin. Why don't we start with Florence?
So I had left. Can you please? I didn't understand. Yeah,
Okay.
my network got cut.
Okay, so the most important thing is for the young generation to try to pass on the same knowledge that you gain from Rodney's book and Rodney's way of life to the people that don't have access to this kind of information. People that live in the so-called ghettos and the so-called slums. So I was saying, if you're not already doing it, I would encourage you to initiate this type of conversation with them. Just go out there and start speaking, even if it's one or two people in the beginning. Once the word spreads that Sister Florence is going to be here next week, then the following week there may be 10 people. They know if Sister Florence is going to be here again next week, you could end up having 20 people now. And even after you leave, those 20 people are sharing this knowledge with other people in those communities that are cut off from access to knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you so much. I think it is important for each and every member, for each and every African to know more about Walter Rodney's work. And I feel it is my responsibility as somebody that has had the privilege to know about Walter Rodney's work and to pass on the information to the other person so that we can spread out the works of Walter Rodney.
Prince Ifoh, the same
Okay,
observation.
thank you so much, sir. So, like you rightly said, I agree that Walter Rodney's scholar activist approach was what made him unique and stood him out. And that, for me, is something that I continue to inspire me and drive me towards the channel that I'm trying to move me out towards. So we have a journal as an organization, and this journal is meant to, bring up some scholarly ideas of young people and of other scholars within Africa, see how we can bring up our ideas for Africa's development together and then push them for implementation through the African Union. So because we are affiliate organization, we are partners with the African Union. So we try to present these ideas for implementation at the African Union. So that's the first step for us. Then we move on to the activist section of it, which is what I try to do, and this is one of the things that inspired me to become a teacher. So I am currently a teacher of history in a school in Nigeria, and I'm doing this because I can't reach out to the young people in different environments. And so I go into the environment, go into communities within these school spaces. I host some kind of historical discussions, political gatherings with young people, and then I continue to inspire them, mentor them, and continue to help them realize that this is where we are as a continent and this is where we need to be as a people. And so the more we do that as Africans, the more we do that, the more we can help Africa get out from where it is to where it ought to be. And so from the African Union, we have this stuff that is called the Agenda 2063 Vision Plan. And that is the plan by the African Union made in 2013 to help move Africa to the first world status. And so, because this is a kind of systemic arrangement by the African Union, which is the apex body in Africa. So YALF is also working in collaboration with the African Union to continue to sensitize young people in that light. So, we keep doing our best. We host conferences regularly. We meet young people, at least in a very young people in West Africa. We host them in a gathering together at least once every year. So we call all the young people together. We come together. We have these discussions. We have these groundings. In one of the discussions or in one of the coming together, we hosted Dr. Patricia Rodney in Lagos. So she came all the way from Atlanta to join us in that discussion in Lagos. I think that was in 2018. And that for us was something that we will continue to do. And we thought we should keep at in order to continue to spread the legacies of Walter Rodney. Yes, so his scholar activist approach is something that continues to drive us. And I know we've done some good works, but we are not relenting. In fact, we do feel like the Young African Leaders Forum that we haven't even really got started. And by the availability of more materials and resources, we could continue to impact more lives and touch more young people for Africa's sake. Thank you, sir.
Brother Adesoji.
Yes. Thank you for your work, Brother Ifoh and Sister Florence. When you mentioned the fact that you're a history teacher, it it warmed my heart a lot, because the work Brother Milton was alluding to is based on this book, The Groundings with My Brothers. And in one of the essays there, he wrote African History in the Service of Black Revolution. So in essence, the essay tells us that in order for you to tell people, give an idea of what people can be, or you have to first of all be where they are at, so you understand their history. Nigeria is such a vast place. I mean, we're talking over 400 languages. The medium plays up the fact that there are 3 large ethnic groups, but there are more than that. There are over 250 ethnic groups. So, the reason I'm asking the question is, if we're going to be doing, and I suppose you're doing that, because I mean, with what you've said in terms of taking it around the place, in order to expand it, have you thought of using the power of social media to build circles of community online where people can readily take any text, any historical text, not just Walter Rodney's, but any historical text? Ngugi wa Thiong'o's Decolonizing the Mind, Chinua Achebe's Hope and Impediments, and dissect it and sit down and discuss. I'm not discounting the fact that there are bigger forums to be had, but I think if we start small, local, and using the power of social media and then connecting those local networks, it will be much more, it will be much more incremental as opposed to be, do you understand what I'm saying? The top-down approach. Because Walter Rodney, when he goes into, which led to the Jamaican situation, was him going to speak to the Rastas. But Colin will speak more on that. And one of the things Walter Rodney learned was, he actually learned more going to speak to the people as opposed to him telling them. It was almost as if the people already knew what to do, but they just needed an outlet to, to send it out. And so you can become that conduit. You and the Youth Young African Leaders Forum can become that conduit of, like Ayiku Ama says in Dismembered, Remembering a Dismembered Continent. It's not that my people do not know what or who they are. It is that the leaders have decided to follow the European model. And so if we're empowering people from the grassroots up, that could actually be a much more viral way of pushing the people forward. And like Steve Biko says, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. With the work you're doing, I'm sure you will liberate those minds faster than these guys can even know what would happen. So
I guess Adesoji, what Adesoji is saying, Brother Ifoh and Sister Florence, is what is the Young African Leaders Forum doing on the ground, grassroots? What are you doing with the masses outside of the conferences with the African Union and other international platforms? What is the work that you're doing on the ground to educate? And I know you mentioned your history teaching, if you can speak more about that. But what are you doing in the villages, in the small towns that are neglected usually? Are you reaching them, and what are you doing there?
Okay, thank you so much again. So in the small towns and in the villages, we not regularly do, but we have been able to host one or two times host what we call, in the modern sense, entrepreneurial fairs and entrepreneurial workshops, just to empower young people. And in the past, we supported people in rural Zimbabwe with startup grants, very small startup grants, so they would start up businesses and create women who are independent. So we empowered rural women who were not able to get, they were treated as second-class citizens, and so we had to first of all, orient them, sensitize them. Then we went ahead to train them through one or two handwork, and then give them a very small token as a startup grant to, set up a business. So that's something that we normally do. And then, my district teaching as part of the things that help me reach the young people in Nigeria and in some part of Africa. So I do that regularly. Once in a while, I host some kind of gatherings with them physically, and then we discuss together about Africa, about history, about what we need to do as a continent to get to where we ought to get to. And so I think I should say it here, but just like Brother Gina said, there's something that I've been thinking about, and that's how you can drive this socially, I mean, on social media, which is a very important key for me. So I realized, like some months ago, the government of Belgium said they released the truth of Patrice Lumumba, and that's after many years of assassinating him. And so this very history or this very news did not really make the headlines that it ought to make. So even when you go online, you go to YouTube, and as a teacher of history on my own, I go to YouTube to try to get content and materials to teach my students and help them see one or two things that I'm talking about that happened in the past. I realized that most of the in the most of the most of the reports, most of the reviews, most of the news stories are coming from a Western perspective, influencing kind of the story and not making it really come from the African side. I'm saying that so we are not telling our stories by ourselves. They are telling our stories for us, and they are tweaking everything and making it not look the way it ought to. So I'm currently discussing with some of my students, though, and trying to see how I can get the kind of team that I need to start up a very good history channel on YouTube where I could continue to build these young people, create with African histories from the African perspective, visit some African museums. I've worked with the Wateroni Foundation in the past, and we've worked with different museums in Africa. So I could go ahead to work with those museums to get first-hand information from African originated histories, and then bring them onto YouTube, talk about what happened in Africa from the African perspective. So that's a project that I'm currently thinking on, I'm currently working on and trying to see how I can quickly develop. And so these are the things that I'm saying, and they are the things that we keep doing for to, reach out to the very grassroots of young people, and to reach out to people who have some kind of orientation, and then we need to reorient them about what Africa needs to be or what Africa is like. So, but then I know that we still need to keep moving into the slum areas. We still need to keep working hard. We still need to keep pushing to reach out to more people in the continent. And we will continue to do our best as an organization. We'll continue to find the support we need to continue to push into these areas further and to improve and change lives, and to have these grounding sections with our brothers and sisters in different parts of the continent. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for me, as a matter of holding you accountable, I would say you already have a platform, a history based platform in Kumbukeni, where we have several sessions that we've done on African history, African ancestors who've done this work. So if you as an organization with resources can make that knowledge more accessible to the grassroots, to the masses, see what you can organize to make sure that they can watch these videos that we have that have all this information. I do a reading of Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa every Monday. If you can make sure that that gets to those villages, to those towns, organize viewings where people can come and listen to this information, that would be a way that you can help with that. Brother Colin.
Yes. First of all, let me again thank Sister Florence and my good brother Prince. Several times now, I've heard the word grassroots in the video, and the brother just mentioned grassroots several times. And as I was listening, it kind of occurs to me the connection between the word grassroots and groundings, right? Now, for me personally, and I should say one thing before I go on to what Milton was talking about earlier about Dr. Rodney going amongst the people. He also went and lived among the people. He didn't just go, and have these interactions and speeches. He actually went and lived in those communities. For me in particular, how I came to know about Walter Rodney was I had an older brother who was now passed on. But I remember going to his house one day, and he was going through how Europe underdeveloped Africa. Now, I should also say that my brother was also a Rasta, and there's a direct connection with the Rasta movement and Walter Rodney. And again, what led to him getting expelled from Jamaica is because he dared to carry the message to the grassroots, right? And those groundings were basically teachings, right? They were teachings where, because even though a lot of people, when they hear the groundings, especially Rastafari, people think of Rastas, it wasn't just the Rastas alone, it was the most downtrodden elements of the society, right? Now, as I listened to Brother Prince too, I also thought of Dr. Ben, right? Because Dr. Ben, who's one of our foremost historians, Egyptologists, he has a video, and I don't remember the name of the video now, but he talks specifically about how he decided that he needed to take the message from the classroom to the regular people, but how it in doing so, he had to figure out a different way of messaging, right? So I would say to my brother Prince, I see you already going not just in the path of Dr. Rodney, but in the path of Dr. Ben as well, where it's not just about teaching in the classroom, but the classroom in the communities, right? So there's so much things to discuss here, because one of the things, and Adesoji took a little bit of my early thunder, because one of the things that I definitely wanted to ask, Adesoji, to ask about social media, but also was wondering about, is there any virtual, let's say, conferences among youth leaders and that type of stuff? Because given that, these are the tools that we have today, that was one of the questions that I had. But again, brother, I salute what you're doing. It's vital that we have youth engagement. Without youth engagement and youth empowerment, African liberation will not happen. And so you could give me your thoughts on anything that I just said.
All right. Thank you so much, Brother Colin. Yes. So, I think last month we hosted Senior Milton Ali in one of our virtual conferences. So we host that every month. Every month. I think on this week Friday, 27th, we'll be hosting the October edition of our conference. So we called it the Africa We Want conferences. So it's a monthly gathering of young people across the globe, young African people of African descent across the globe. So you join us as long as you are driving us towards the Africa that we want. And the Africa that we want, the Africa is an Africa that is united and prosperous. And so that's why we call the very conference, or the very monthly discussion, the Africa we want. So that's something that we do regularly. And so we do that to discuss salient issues that are bothering Africa, and then propose solutions to them. So we have takeaways that we could take back to our organizations to implement. And then also things that are at the policy level, we push them to the African Union to see what they could do. Although sometimes, because of the too many bureaucratic bottlenecks, they do not fish out of most of those things. But where necessary or where possible, I have very strong mentors at the African Union that are in some good positions. So they use their offices sometimes to push for one or two of these very changes that we talked about. But in more general sense of it, I mean, the bureaucracy is usually much, and those policies that we suggest really are not effective exactly the way we want them to be. for what we could do as an organization to ourselves, we just pick it up and we just start doing it. So it was in a virtual conference like this that we came up with the idea of hosting a monthly discussion where we could normally have recent issues being discussed and then moving those recent issues to the next level, and then also standing together as young people to speak on some things that are happening on the continent. In the past, we've had to do some kind of discussions about the current happenings in Niger, in some African countries, and in the wake of all these Western interferences in the continent. And so we keep doing our best as African young people. And sometimes we are limited because of the lack of resources when necessary. We keep doing everything that we could with the little resources we have to continue to support and to move African communities and African young people to the next level. So that's basically what we do at the Young African Leaders Forum, and we just have that passion to keep going and keep going further until we get to that very point in Africa where we can look back and say, we are here finally. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sister Florence, we've all been talking and we didn't hear from you much. Yeah, I know you said you're a medical student and you're working with women in Zambia, and just that you participated in a program in the US regarding women and policy. So if you can please talk a little bit just about that, Sister Florence.
Right. Okay. So sorry, my network had cut again. It's like I had lost everybody.
Sorry.
This is
I didn't get you clearly.
the reality of working grassroots Africa, right? We have to deal with the network challenges, which is okay. I'm glad you're back. Go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't get your question clearly.
Okay, so we're all talking about working on the ground and reaching the masses. You are a medical student in Zambia, working with the women in Zambia, and working on. You've been on a project that was working on women and policy. If you can please speak a little bit, and I know both you and Prince Ifoh are members of. Prince Ifoh is the founder. You are a member of the Young African Leaders Forum. If you can please, and I think you are the representatives in Zambia, right?
Oh, yes.
Yes. If you can please speak a little bit about the work you're doing that under that capacity.
Oh, all right. Thank you so much. So, under Women's Project, I've been working to ensure that we end all forms of malnutrition under the Zambia Health and Nutrition Project. So we work to focus on the first 1,000 days of life, through various capacity building programs that promote behavior change among its mothers, through women empowerment in agriculture and knowledge on how we can fight all forms of malnutrition and other chronic diseases. Yes.
All right. So,
yeah.
Florence and Prince Ifoh. I always like reminding young people that we are all attracted to these nice ideas that inspire us, that inspire us to want to do more for Africa, right? And that's why we are mentioning Rodney today. And of course, we've mentioned some of the names of our African ancestors like Nkrumah. When Africans talk about African unity, Nkrumah's name always comes up. And I'm going back to the fact that Rodney liked to combine these brilliant ideas with practical things on the ground as well. So Africa is the youngest continent in the world. I think the people age under 25 make up more than 60% of the population. But also unemployment is very high. In some African countries, unemployment go as high as 60% or even higher. So it's very difficult to get our young people interested in these brilliant intellectual conversations when the stomach is not fed. So what I would like to see is for your organization, Young African Leaders Forum, to be involved in more and more income generating activities as well. And we can do simple things that people outside Africa can support. So for example, youth or girls handicraft projects. Our people know how to make beautiful items with their hands and locally available materials. So we should start encouraging members of Young African Leaders Forum to start participating in these types of activities. And we can even help them export it. Who knows? We can make connections for them with Starbucks. Since Starbucks is already exploiting our coffee anyway, we may as well have them sell some of the products that our people are making, right? We can make similar connections with Whole Foods. And now, instead of our young people being unemployed in the streets of Lusaka or Lagos or any other African city, they can have some income, right? That's one idea. The second major one, of course, is agriculture. Our grown-ups have abandoned agriculture. Mm-hmm. Africa imports $35 billion worth of food every year. Just think about that. That's a complete failure. So once again, our young people, through Young Africa Leaders Forum, can start rescuing Africa once again. Just because we are reading all these books, it doesn't mean once in a while we shouldn't get our hands touching the soil, right? We can start commercial agriculture. And once again, we Africans outside can help. We can help them acquire some land. We can go to people in the agriculture department in African universities and get some experts from there who are trained to come and teach young people how to grow, how to plant, how to cultivate. And now we are supplying the food to the cities. And if we do, you know how people in the West like organic, right? Mm-hmm. We can start exporting some organic products that can only be found in some African countries. There's some products in Nigeria that cannot be found anywhere else in the world. Some in Zambia that cannot be found anywhere in the world. And once Whole Foods and Starbucks discover this, people here are not going to be buying those tasteless things that they're selling right now at Whole Foods. They will buy the ones coming from Zambia, from Nigeria.
I've been staying patient, as you say, Whole Foods and whatever other US entity you've been mentioning. I'm like, why not within Africa? Distribute within Africa.
It will be done. That's part of it. Within Africa, that's why I said we'll be supplying our cities. But by exporting it, they get extra income. We import so much from the outside. It's about time that they import from Africa as well. So these are some things that I hope you young people will discuss in your future meetings. And if you need us who are a little older to look at your proposals and ideas and contribute some comments, we'll be more than happy. In other words, tell us what you need from us as well, so that we are not just asking you questions, what are you doing here? What are you doing there? How can we help you? Is another question that I would want both of you to address as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Milton and Master. So, it took us back to 2019 when we hosted, just 1 year after Dr. Patricia really came to Lagos, we hosted another West African conference in Lagos, Nigeria. And then we discussed about the idea to come up with a B2B that connects all a business network that connects many young people's business within Africa, within West Africa. We wanted to start with West Africa first of all, then we test run it and saw that it worked in West Africa. We could then launch it to the rest of the continent. But that idea really did not go the way we wanted it to go because of the fact that we did not get a good way to control the flow of funds within different West African countries. So it's like this. it's easy to do and transact business from it's more easy to do and transact business from the United States to maybe to Canada than it is to transact business from Lagos, Nigeria to Cotonou, Benin Republic without going there physically. So in Lagos, for instance, in Nigeria, for instance, one of the accepted ways of paying online and doing business online is like what's it called, PayPal. So now PayPal does not really work in Nigeria. I mean, it works for you to, I think it works for you to send, but it works for you to receive or send. I know one of them is just not functioning. It's either it's working for you to send and you're not able to receive, or it's working for you to receive and you're not able to send. So, I mean, it's working for you to send rather, and you're not able to receive. And so when we checked that with some other West African countries, we saw that we had similar issues almost across board. And so it was difficult to manage the flow or to pay for a service or to pay for a business when you are here and have it sent there. Then also to have that goods you are paid for sent from, say, Ghana to Nigeria. So it even costs more to send something from Ghana to Nigeria than it will cost you to send from US to Nigeria. So that's some of the difficulties we saw. And these difficulties, made us give up. We gave up, although we shouldn't have given up, but we gave up because, it was just so much beyond our capacity. And we thought we should take that back to the African Union to see what they could do. But till now, that's one of the reasons why they brought in the African Free Trade Continental Agreement idea, and they are currently working on this. But I do think that maybe as we keep progressing, that will continue to happen. Yes. So I know you spoke about the fact that we need to get these things going, income generating ideas and activities that will help young people really get to survive. Yes, and that for me has been a major problem. It's been a major problem for me. It's been a major problem because many young people look up to me, and I really am not in a very good capacity to help them the way I ought to. So I have, for instance, our national coordinator in Sudan, and is currently seriously affected by the problems and the very instability in Sudan. And he's called me several times for support, for help, but really our hands were tied as an organization, and there was really nothing we could do to support the way we wanted to. And so that for me is the reason why I continue to look for ideas and projects that would really help us work out and support young Africans so they could be independent financially and they could represent their own needs so that they can then start to represent and advocate for the needs of others around them. And so those are the things that we look out for. If we look out for that, to help us achieve lands. I know you spoke about that in your Milton and Liberty. So land, for instance. So it's not just about, many of them will be very interested to get into agriculture, to begin to start off something. We will share ideas with them. They will be very willing to, it will even make them even more interested to work. But one of the problems and one of the challenges is the rate of poverty and the inability to even start up anything without that support. They need seed grants. They need if they could get leased lands where they could farm. I know many farmers in the young African leaders who will be willing to farm if they get the lands that they need. If they have the resources that they need, the seeds, the basic things that they might need to begin the process of that business from a very young, tender age, I'm sure that idea will really fly as quickly as possible. So some of the things that we even do within the Young African Leaders Forum is that, so we partner regularly with this organization. It's a university called the International Leadership University of Kenya in Kenya. So ILU Kenya, they are long-term partners as well. And so what we do with ILU is to help young people get skills, leadership skills, digital skills. They help us with training, sometimes 2 or 3 day seminars, sometimes 1 week long seminar. We work with the ILU. They help us host this kind of seminars for young people. And then at the end of the seminars, or I'll call them short courses, so we certify them. And then when we certify them, they could become employable with that certificate. So that's something we've done in the past, and we continue to do that. Sometimes the university always wants us to give them, some guarantee that after this, they will surely have some other things to benefit from it, not just doing this only at the CSR. Yes, so, but then we get them to do it at the CSR sometimes to support us. And I know in the past we've had somebody use the leadership certificate that he got from IMU to get a good job, and someone we taught through graphic design skills became a very fantastic graphic designer, and that made the person get a very good job. I mean, the man who started YALF's website, the very first web designer for YALF, his name is Adesoji. He's a Nigerian. I mean, he started from scratch, but today he's a master web designer, working for companies, working for organizations, and doing all these things. But we started from scratch with him, and then he went through the trainings, he learned on the job. When he was building our first website, he was basically a learner when he built it, but he kept improving, he kept going through the courses he hosted and the ones he hosted and the ones he attended on his own, and those are the things that he did to become a master web designer today. So there are many things that we really thought about doing, yes, but on a very long run, seed grants and some very financial restrictions have really kept us from not doing them the way we ought to. But then we try to explore all technical means to see that it does not really have to depend on finance alone. Everything that we could do with technical partnerships, we go as far as getting everything possible done through technical partnerships. So those are the things that we could and we are doing at this time. And we'll be glad to have to explore other options that could help us help more young people in Africa.
Okay, I just want to add one thing quickly. I have some land in Uganda. So in the future, once you have your business plan ready for growing organic for export, let me take a look and we can talk about making some of this land available to young people. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you so much, Senior Milton Ali. I will share that information with my comrades as quickly as possible, and then I'm sure we'll get back to you as quickly as possible, sir. Thank you so much again.
Make sure the Western ones don't get wind of it. They might stop you from doing it. Just me entering some. Listen. Anyway, so I hear a lot of barriers, and I honestly would like us to have an honest conversation, right? And I would hope that YALF is putting down a record of the barriers that you're facing. You mentioned financial institutions keeping you from doing what you want to do the way you want to do it. You mentioned challenges on international trade when you were trying to do some trade between Nigeria and Ghana. So it would be nice to start recording these barriers so that when we all gather together, when we're in rooms looking at the problem in Africa and how we can solve it, we know exactly what the problems are from real life experiences. So my hope would be that YALF is taking a record of these barriers that we have in Africa. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those financial institutions that you mentioned is at the IMF or the World Bank. If you can speak to the challenges and the barriers, that would be nice so that we know what they are. And my hope is that we can continue this conversation in a space where we can have a candid conversation as far as what YALF is facing as challenges and how we can overcome them, so that when you have someone like Brother Alimadi offering land, you don't have someone like Museveni preventing you from having access to it, or the IMF preventing the young people who get access from growing food crops, because those are the challenges that you'll be facing. It's good enough that Alimadi is providing land, but what other barriers are in Africa that will prevent you from doing that work? That would be nice to see that. Brothers, I'm not sure if you want to ask anything else on that. Sister Florence, please feel free to unmute and join the conversation. Let's not make it all about Prince Ifoh.
Okay, so I was just following the conversation and I heard what my president, Prince Ifoh, just mentioned. Even here in Zambia, we have so much land when it comes to agriculture. We have so much land, but it's owned by the government and the government isn't doing anything on that. And Zambia being a country that depends on agriculture, and we are having issues when it comes to agriculture. I mean, it's so bad. It's so bad if we have so much land, because as an organization, I have been working some groundwork before I joined the school of the school of medicine. I have some agriculture background. I studied agriculture, and I have used my knowledge in educating women on agriculture practices. And we have so many people that don't have land and would really love to farm. So for that, we're currently using an initiative where people are able to grow crops and vegetables in buckets when we have a lot of land. And it's not enough. You see, it's not enough. So I think if we can look upon that, it would be really great.
Is the government selling this land? Do they offer to sell it?
So far, you just see it as government property and they're not doing anything on it.
Interesting.
You find it years and years.
I think we should have a whole, maybe down the line in a couple of weeks or months, let's have another conversation just focusing on the land issues. And both of you can do a little bit of research to find out the domestic restrictions within your country. And then we can have this conversation. The reason why I made that suggestion is because my brother, who works at the UN, is trying to do something with the land that we have. And there's a project whereby you come up, I think, with 30% of the capital. And there's a financing institution in Uganda, which is actually private. So the government has nothing to do with it, thankfully, knock on wood. And they would come out with the balance of the funding. And they say the system that other people already use is so productive that within a year, they're able to repay back the financing coming from this entity. And then by the second year, they're already generating a profit. So I will find out more about this project from my brother. I'll share it with you. And then you can try and draw your own model and see what you think you might be able to do with, I don't know what size of land you would need, but this is a conversation we can have going down the line so that we can test something very practical and see if it works or not. And if it works as a pilot project, we can then multiply it to several other African countries.
We have a lot of participation in the audience, so it's after 1:00. I'm going to actually go to audience questions, unless Brother Colin Adesoji, you have questions for Sister Florence and Prince Ifoh. Prince Ifoh, Sister Florence, please feel free to, if you had any comments on what Brother Milton just said.
With any of the, and that's to both our guests, Sister Florence and Brother Ifoh. With regards,
we can follow up. What I just said, we can follow up off camera, so they don't. Really
okay. No. I'm just diverting. Something else. It's completely something else. In terms of your general operations, and could you come up with some way you've used local knowledge as opposed to the normal models in order to get around, getting your message across? Because I think your message is important, and the more ears you hit with said message, the better it is for the general population. Did you hear me?
Yes, I think he is unmuting. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did. So what we'll keep doing is what I think I should talk about is that we will keep finding ways to move and pass this information in a way that is not the generic standards and this way that is, unique to Africa. And that will come in different forms, through storytelling, through different things, through this was one of the reasons why I agreed to work with. There's a movement that they call the Teach for All movement. It's a global movement for education. It's something that works with the UN. I think it's in the United States as Teach for America, and then in the UK as Teach First. So when they were coming into Nigeria, they met some of us, and then they spoke about the need to work with them. And so, I had to drop everything that I was doing, even though it wasn't really going to pay me much, but I had to do that just to get access to people that are in the slum areas. And so I volunteered to work with this organization for 2 years. And so for 2 years, I went to the remotest areas to meet young people. The young people I met in those communities, I do not think I can meet them again I mean, I do not think I could have had the opportunity to meet them if I didn't go through that path. So that part, some areas in Lagos, in some other parts of Nigeria where we spoke, empowered, mentored young people, and some of them are still in my list of young mentees now. One or two of them are already in university. I mean, and their parents are very, very particular about keeping that connection with me, such that before they take any very important decision in the life of the child or in the life of the student, they have to call me to say, this is what the child wants to do, and this is what we have agreed. Do you think it is a wise thing to do? And so I said, okay, so I think this will be good for his career, this will be good. And so those are the kind of small, little groundings and little mentorship that I provide to them pro bono, without having to do anything monetary or having to get that done. So what I will do is that even when I host these international conferences, where possible, I form some of them to attend. So come for the conference and I pay for your transport. So I cover your expense if you have to come with your parents. I pay for your transport with that of your parents so you can come, get empowered and go. And so those are the things that we keep doing that are outside the normal ways of doing things. And so we'll keep exploring more ways as we keep getting the capacity, because the capacity is very important. The one who is trying to empower others must also be very much empowered so that he will continue to do the empowerment that are necessary. And I'm hoping, so from the end of this year, hopefully I can begin to work in that path and be in a better position to help more young people in Africa.
So, so obviously we have not even scratched the surface of where we need to go. There's so much more to say. So obviously we're going to have a lot of follow-up. But since I know we kind of running down in time, I'm going to just ask a couple of questions really quick. So what would you say are one of them is what would you say are the most effective ways to engage with the youth, to inspire and encourage more youth participation in our struggles for African liberation? How can older generations engage better with our youth? And I also want to know about connections with other youth organizations outside of Africa and the Caribbean and the US.
All right. So thank you. So let me start with the first one. The most important ways of engaging with young people. So if you ask me, every young African, especially in this era, wants to know what is the need for them. So I mean, if you have to invite them for something, they want to know what do I stand to gain? What is the need for me? And so one of the ways to engage them is to give them the need. I mean, just help them see the need to do what you want them to do. And that sometimes inspirations will come sometimes by giving them some things that will guarantee a very bright future for them, not necessarily financial, but as long as they can see the need, they can see the essence of what you are trying to do and to work with you. So, I mean, they just come in and then they get engaged immediately. So even when we started the movement that is hosting these regular monthly programs that we call the Africa We Want, young people came together because we share the common goal. And I mean, many of them are supposed to be inspired as long as we share a common goal, and then we continue to work together to see how we can bring that common goal to pass. Then another thing is something that gives them a takeaway. Takeaway in terms of skills, takeaway in terms of knowledge, and that's what we offer as an organization. So as YALF, what we do is that we empower young people. We empower you with skill, with knowledge, with different things. So and then also with where possible, with seed brand to start up a business or do something. And so you get many young people getting engaged, many young people connecting or contacting you to know what they ought to do and how they need to move into the next phase. So I mean, as long as they see what they start to gain, they'll just keep in and they'll keep coming and keep working with you and keep engaging to see how they can improve their own lives. Because again, that's the goal of every man, to see if I can improve my own life. So when I have improved my own life, then I can begin to advocate for the needs of others around me. Yeah, so and that's what we do. So as you come into YALF, we try to help you get empowered and get established, so you can now stand in that position and see how you can help us empower others. So, but then it's a network of connections and connections and connections. And I think that links to the next point: connections with other organizations across the globe. So we have people from YALF who started in YALF, but got empowered in YALF, eventually went out to study or to do something and got there and started up their own organizations. And today we are very strong partners with them. So it's a connection of, so they always remember that, yes, at some point we started with YALF, and then today we have our organizations. And I mean, so sometimes we work with them, sometimes they still stand for us as YALF in the diaspora. And that's how we got many diaspora offices. So we are represented in 28 African nations and in some diaspora communities. So, and that's because our people were empowered, and then they moved out in the spirit of YALF to continue to empower others there and to set up organizations that will continue to improve lives. So that's some of the things that we keep doing. Then we also connect with some other young organizations in different parts of the globe that share in our common vision, because our kind of agenda is really not one that everybody would want to embrace. So, I mean, it's unique to Africa, it must be Pan-African, and it has to be something that moves and drives towards the African ideology. If you are not so careful, you might rub up with somebody who is going to rub you off what you really want to do. So, and so we just make sure that we ensure that if we are going to partner with you, then it must be on the basis that we share a common vision. Right. And so, getting these kind of organizations I mean, are not so, they are not so much, they are not plenty, that's what I'm going to say. They are not much. And so we just try to link up to the people that we can link up, and continue to do the work that we can continue to do in our capacity at YALF.
Great. Yes, as we go on to the audience questions. Sorry, we have an echo. I'm not sure why we do. But as we go to the audience questions, I'm gonna put one up there. Before I read that, Brother Ifoh, if you could please let us know, and I think we lost our sister. Hopefully she'll be able to come back on. Just let us know what age group Young African Leaders Forum covers, so that for the young people who are listening to us who are interested in joining in the work, and therefore for
yeah.
the...
So it
Go on. Mm-hmm. You can go on. That's okay.
Sorry. Yeah, so we cover the ages of 13 to 35. Thank you.
And today I have found out that I am no longer young, so it's good to know. But for the young people between the age of 18 and 35, please do reach out to Prince Ifoh and see how you can help with the work they are doing. But also let us know, those of us who are now older than young, how we can support in the work, because we have access to young people. So the first question from our audience members, Akata, is the Africa we want, does the Africa we want include incorporating more African indigenous culture and less westernization? Is our goal being guided by Eurocentric values? And this is something, I'll be honest with you, that I was a little hesitant about when I was reading about YALF and Florence and the work that you all are doing. Every time I saw United States, I was like, please. Every time I saw you in United States and the things you're doing with the United States, I felt, why? So please, yes, speak to that. Oh, we can't hear. You're muted, I think. Or let me see. You're muted. Yes, you're muted. Mm-hmm.
So thank you so much. That's a very good question from Burakasa. I see. Thank you. Yes. So the Africa we want is an ideology, and it's better. It came out from the African Union Agenda 2063, and that's an idea to incorporate. To keep Africa prosperous, using Africa's resources, using African human power, using everything African. And I mean, it's going to be without the interference of westernization and other Eurocentric values. Yeah, obviously, as an organization and as a small group of young people, everything that we keep doing, and that's one of the things that I kept standing on for a very long time. I have had to tone down many things that will make me lose sight of where exactly I'm standing and what exactly I want to be doing, because I don't want to get straight out from the real thing that I want to actually do. And so we try to do that as an organization within our small capacity to make sure that everything that we do is Pan-African. Everything that we do is built on the African ideology. It is built on that indigenous culture. It is built on who we are as a people, and not what they told us or what they sold to us. And it is built on, I mean, not working with them, but working amongst ourselves to drive that ideology. So, but then we take it back to the African Union. I'm so sorry it's getting dark here. There's a storm, and also it's almost nightfall here. So
I figured that you're good. Yeah.
So there's also the part where we need to work with the African Union. Now, the African Union, because when it comes to policy implementations, we really don't have that power. So we have to go back to them to see, okay, so this is what we need to do. We are invited sometimes for conferences, and we go there and we present our ideas, we write them, we also. But then, even though the African Union has something that is called the Agenda 2063, and is aimed at making sure that Africa gets to where it ought to get to by the year 2063. I do not think that the African Union is entirely free of that Western influence. And that's because I mean, they get some of their funds from these Western bodies. And so the more, I mean, they say, quickly who pays the piper, the test the tune. So you can imagine what happens. So if you get your fund from that, those kind of bodies, you surely will not have to treat. So they have a way of managing their relationships with these people, and so it does not keep them entirely free from that Western interference. But then they keep trying to do what they do. But what they do in many occasions is that some of the things that are necessary, they kind of push it to other organizations to see if they can implement it. An idea, but then they will really not push for it. They'll not push it out to other people, and then we just continue to run with it. And so we run with it and we run with it. They can give us some kind of support on the back, but I mean, they would not be really people. I mean, they will not front themselves to say, okay, so we are behind this idea. So that's it. So for our organization and for our own part as young people, whatever we do within our movement is Pan-African. It's African focus. We are not we are not to respond, or we are not answerable to any Western body. So we are fully independent, and everything we do within our organization is based on what we believe is right for Africa. Even our partnerships are also decided. We partner with organizations based on the fact that they have the African ideology at mind. And that's how we got connected with the Water Organization, because we know that they have that ideology at heart. So if they hadn't gotten, if they were not Pan-African focused, I do not think we would have connected with them. So that's basically what is driving us, that Pan-African ideology, and we need to stay African everywhere.
Yeah, and that was your saving grace when it came to me. Every time I saw US, but I saw Walter Rodney, I was like, okay, let's go back. They're affiliated with the Walter Rodney organization. Things are good. But also to the masses who are listening to us, the one way we can make sure that the Young African Leaders Forum is not influenced by the West is to make sure that they're not reliant or dependent on their funds. So we Africans need to help them raise funds. We Africans need to contribute to the funding that they need. But also I was going to mention, when we talk about the 2063 agenda, the Africa we want, we have to be sure we know who the we is and whoever who wants is, right? Who is we who wants from Africa in 2063? And as long as that we is not Africans, then there's a problem with that agenda. And I have a feeling, and Brother Ifoh, you may have insinuated to this, is that the we that was being considered when this agenda was brought together was not African. So let's be cautious about that, Africans. The other question How much support is there for reintroducing native foods to grow that are better adapted to your environment conditions? How receptive is the general population to this?
How much support is there for?
So, yeah, the original seeds, you know how we have GMO in Africa. So what do Africans feel about the original seeds and keeping our native foods and not growing foods for Western industries?
Yes, I mean that's something that Africans really thought about when they initiated the free trade continental area, because they saw that many of the things we plant in Africa, many of the things we grow in Africa are rather exported. And so it is very important that we see the need to, I mean, keep our things within our environment, and then make them better adapted to our own conditions, our environmental conditions, instead of having them used for other purposes. But what we do, or what I think many young people will continue to do as a people, as a continent or as a movement, is that we have to ensure that everything we plant, everything we grow in the continent, everything that we try to bring or produce is towards that channel of feeding Africa. But I mean, you get better proceeds, you get better dividends, you get better outputs when you trade and deal with Western people, or you export outside the continent. And that's the idea why many people grow, but then they rather choose to export instead of having them gather in the continent. So that's how much I will speak about that question. I don't get to understand it properly. Thank you.
Yes. And we need to connect you with more of the organizations that are preserving the original seed so that you can work with them once the young people get the land. Sister Florence, I don't know if you can hear us. I know you're back. I see you back. Oh, no. She's been taken off again. All right. Another question. I'd like to hear some history on YALF. When, where, and how was it founded? Who finances YALF? What political economy, socialist, capitalist, or other, does the YALF suggest for Africa?
Okay, so some history about YALF. YALF started in 2014, although the idea for YALF was introduced or was formed in 2011 when I wrote my final year thesis as an undergraduate. I had read a book by Walter Rodney, and it inspired me. Then I chose to begin to create something that would bring young people together to drive the kind of Africa that we really want. And so it started in 2014, and we started, actively, very, very massively. And by the next year, 2015, that was when the African Union saw what we were doing and then gave me an award as a young African hero, a youth hero on the continent. And that was when I started to officially work with the African Union. And so I am the founder of the Young African Leaders Forum. But from the initial period, I started with 8 comrades from 8 African countries. But today we are represented in 28 African nations in the United States, Canada, South Korea, then some other Western countries as well. But all these diaspora offices are run by some of our partners that are African focused and our comrades that have really left the source of the continent, either for study or just for greener pastures. So those are the things that we continue to do. And so if you ask me, okay, so who finances YALF? So we get deep finance from different sponsors and partners. So the African Union, for instance, do not provide us with financial support, but they strongly provide us with everything that is called technical support. So if we want to host a conference, for instance, in any country, the African Union could help us secure a very good conference space, for instance. And we want to do anything. They could use their capacity as the African Union to continue to help us move and get things done in different sections and in different parts. Then we also have the Walter Rodney Foundation, which is also a very strong, sponsor of the Young African Leaders Forum. They partner with us and sponsor when we host conferences and groundings and small activities to reach out to the grassroots. I mean, they've been very connected and they've kept helping us. And that's because they saw that we were doing things in life with what Rodney had suggested through his writings in how Europe underdeveloped Africa and many other works that he did. So then we have International Leadership University and many other bodies, then amongst ourselves as well. So we have some very good individuals as well who support us once we have that ideas. But this is a Pan-African movement, and it's quite difficult to get some kind of funds from certain kind of areas, especially when they see that you are driving an African ideology alone. It's difficult to reach out. We've done many submissions and proposals, but because of that, we couldn't get. But we keep moving and keep giving our own quota, both in terms of time, in our resources, and to our little sponsors and our partners everywhere. We keep doing everything that we can to fund the organization and continue to implement our programs and projects in different parts of the world. Yeah, so we also believe in Ujama, as Julius Nyerere suggested. Yeah, so that's what remains the idea. So that, I mean, I am because we all are, and that for me is the ground for whatever we do inside of YALF and even as an individual. Thank you.
So quickly, before I leave it to my brothers, since I feel like I've been speaking too much, how can we help maintain YALF 100% independent and African? If you are reaching out to the African community, how can we do that for you?
Okay, so I guess we need partners like what you are doing. I know what you are doing is African focus. I kept getting links from Mama Rodney. She keeps sending me links, and that's how I got to know about this podcast. So she kept inviting me to watch it, and I kept watching, and I keep seeing that, okay, so these things are really focused on African development and then the Pan-African ideology and movement. So we keep doing everything that we can as an organization to ensure that we have the funds to stay Pan-African. And I mean, that's what will keep us Pan-African. That fund, the funding to implement activities and projects. So most of the things we've spoken about really cost something to implement them. So when we have to host conferences, when we have to go travel to meet people, when we have to fund businesses with little grants, giving them, under some women in Zimbabwe kept calling us to ask, you guys are not coming again. Since that time, you did not come back to help us. What is happening? So, but they really did not know that. Okay, so okay, we will come, but it's because we got some kind of funds at the time and we implemented that project. But and thanks to the late Robert Mugabe as well, because he was also influential in doing that. Yeah. So, but I mean, going forward, we keep getting the African community helping us to raise the kind of funds that we need to keep implementing this idea. And that's what I think about the African diaspora, that the diaspora can continue to come together. If they have the interests of Africans at heart, then they can continue to move towards helping organizations that are truly focused on moving Africa forward. So if they can fund these activities and fund these projects, then we can continue to do what we ought to do within the continent, while we continue to partner with them to influence and change the narrative from the diasporan perspective if we have to. So, but that's basically for me is some of the things that are necessary for us to keep working as an organization to stay Pan-African and to keep our Pan-African identity to bring us to get and not have to, debate at some point and lose focus. Yes. So thank you.
All right, brothers. I don't know, Alimadi, if you want to say a quick word before we close, and we can wrap up. Just.
Oh no, this has been a great conversation. You're young people, and you will learn a lot more as we go forward. But I'm very glad that at this early age, you're already engaged in these serious conversations, and we will offer as much guidance as we can. And we also hope that when we next have this conversation, you will also come with many questions prepared for us to answer as well. Questions that can help you as you chart your course forward to unite the African youth in the African project, not only for political unity, but for economic empowerment as well. So thank you for joining us today, both Florence and Prince Ifoh.
Adesoji, Colin.
Yeah, I'll echo the thoughts of Brother Milton, and also they've just added more credence to the quote by Kwame Nkrumah, where he says there is no action without thought. And so, yes, there's been lots of thoughts now. That's the action on the ground. And so it follows through that, again, bringing it square to Walter Rodney. You bring the knowledge, you go and tell the people and get the people working. So thank you guys for coming in, Florence and Brother Ifoh.
Brother Colin.
You're muted, Colin, you're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I echo everything that was just said by Brother Adesoji, as well as Brother Milton and Sister Nduku. And I would like to commend these two young people, these two brilliant young people, Sister Florence and Brother Prince Ifoh. This conversation has made me feel a lot better about, where we're going with our youth. And so, again, I would just like to commend them. They're doing the work. And Prince Ifoh, you just dropped a lot of stuff today. So thank you so much. You are definitely following in the Rodney tradition. I can't say enough about everything that you are not only said, but that you're doing. So thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, and let's organize an in-person Young African Leaders Forum here in New York in 2 years' time. Maybe not 2024, but
yes.
in 2025. And
I'm already looking at inviting them.
We'll be happy to see Florence and people here in New York City.
I'm already looking.
All right, so the good thing is that I think I should be there by next year. So yeah, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm already looking at inviting them next year for an event. So yes, Brother Alimadi, we're definitely getting them here. But to everyone that's listening to us, you heard what the need is. Reach out to them. We gave the links. You see our brother here and how to reach him at Prince Ifoh. I believe you are on Instagram as well, right, Prince Ifoh? And on LinkedIn, you can follow them there and reach out to the organization there to see how you can help. Again, Kumbukeni does Monday readings of How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. You can join us for those at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We also will be starting the journalism analysis classes that Brother Alimadi promised a while back. We're starting November 3rd on Friday evenings. For those of you who are interested, you can join our Patreon community. That is where we will be having those discussions for the Patreon community and the community at large, if you can get in there. Again, our Patreon membership ranges from $3, depending on how much you can afford. If you can sponsor others, please let us know, and we can give access to more people to join the Patreon community so that we can have essentially journalism school for all of us to analyze the issues that we face. Kumbukeni, you can send us an email, kumbukeni1@gmail.com. You can follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/Kumbukeni, or subscribe here on YouTube at youtube.com/@Kumbukeni1. Prince Ifoh, Florence, any last words as we part?
I just wanted to say thank you for having me, Brother Milton, Brother Colin, Brother Adesoji, and Nduku. Thank you for having us.
Sister Florence.
All right, I would like to say thank you so much for having us today. And, this conversation has not only, it has not only made me, it has actually made me realize on how much groundwork we need to do And I have learned so much from each and every person. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
No, wait, Florence. When we started the conversation, I could hear some chicken in the background crying. But now I can't hear that chicken. Is that chicken for dinner?
It's been slaughtered.
Is that chicken slaughtered for dinner? That chicken is no longer crying.
I'm actually at the farm right now.
Okay, enjoy the chicken.
And we should do this regular check-in. Let's do this on Kumbukeni. Every so often we check in what's going on with the youth, what are the challenges, how can we help? Let's do a regular check-in on African youth. Peace, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good day and a good weekend.
Thank you.